Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Bay. I'm Ted Kroll, and I'm here to introduce The Bandwagon, a musical made in 1953 starring Fred Astaire and Sid Charisse, directed by Vincent Minnelli. This picture is considered to be one of the finest musicals of the golden Technicolor age of musicals from the Arthur Freed unit at MGM, which flourished in the 1940s and 50s. In researching the background of The Bandwagon, I found a goldmine of fascinating personalities, images, music, dialogue, all of which contributed to the notion that is characterized in its landmark number, that's entertainment. Let's start with why it's called The Bandwagon. The main narrative thread of the film is the trials and tribulations of putting on a show called The Bandwagon, but there is no discussion why they call it that, and certainly no physical bandwagon appears in the film or in the musical within the film. It turns out there was a successful Broadway revue in 1931 called The Bandwagon, which featured Fred Astaire and his sister Adele in their last appearance together on Broadway. Several of the songs do come from this Broadway revue, and the rest come from various 1930s movies and shows. They're all written by Arthur Schwartz and Howard Dietz. They're all dressed up in elaborate 1950s full orchestral arrangements, so none sound dated. The one song they did write for the film was That's Entertainment. The story has it that they wrote it in 45 minutes. Because The Bandwagon has its roots in a Broadway show, and the fact that the primary plot concerns putting on this show on Broadway, its writers and directors also came from New York theater background. The movie has a New York sensibility, somewhat more sophisticated and cosmopolitan than the typical Hollywood musical. The Bandwagon was produced by the Arthur Freed unit, which was a semi-independent production group at MGM. Over a period of years, Arthur Freed gathered together a consortium of actors, musicians, technicians, and craftsmen that created high-quality films, and because they were mostly musicals, they had the opportunity to create some quite imaginative numbers that verged sometimes on the avant-garde. Vincent Minnelli, the director of The Bandwagon, took full advantage of this opportunity. Minnelli was a set designer in New York and was brought to Hollywood by Freed in the 1940s. Over his 25-year career at MGM, he made a wide range of films, dramas, comedies, but is best remembered for his musicals. With his background as a set designer, his films exhibit a rich visual style. Colors, camera movement, and decor are all used to convey a complexity of meaning beyond the narrative and dialogue. One theme of many of his films is the sense of loneliness and melancholy that is overcome by busy, hard work. In The Bandwagon, Tony Hunter, the Fred Astaire character, is presented as a solitary has-been coming to New York to restart his career. And one of the underlying narrative themes in the movie is his struggle to renew himself through his immersion in the hard work of putting on a successful show. The Bandwagon contains a lot more than just a series of brilliant set pieces. The screenplay was written by Betty Comden and Adolph Green, a long-lived team of writers out of New York. They included themselves as characters in The Bandwagon. Although Comden and Green were not married, their counterpoints in the film are a married couple played by Annette Fabray and Oscar Levant. Fabray was another creature of Broadway. The Bandwagon was her one outstanding movie role. For those of us of a certain age, she was active in 50s and 60s TVs working with Sid Caesar and Carol Burnett. Oscar Levant was a world-class pianist and sometime composer. He was great friends with George Gershwin and was the chief interpreter of Rhapsody in Blue. He was a radio and TV personality. He was known for his cutting wit and neurotic personality and actually fell apart publicly on TV. One of his famous lines was, "I knew Doris Day before she was a virgin." His sour disposition is on display in the character that he plays in the Bandwagon. Another main character is played by the Scottish actor Jack Buchanan. This movie is his main claim to recognition these days, but in his prime he was a well-known matinee idol on the British stage and screen. His character in the Bandwagon is a pretentious high art impresario based on somebody like Jose Ferrer or Orson Welles. Of course, Fred Astaire is the soul of the film. He plays a character who is coming to Broadway from Hollywood. The earliest scenes in the film show him to be a washed-up has-been. Astaire was nowhere to that being washed up at this point in his career, but he did consider retiring around this time, and he was entering a period of being an elder statesman. One of the narrative lines of the film is his character's struggle to renew his professional life. The fact is, in the final number, he was challenged to create a more rigorous style of dancing than he was known for. A side note, the first big number featured Astaire dancing with a shoeshine man. Turns out this dancer was a true shoeshiner in real life, Leroy Daniels. He used this opportunity to develop a showbiz career and later appeared on Stanford and Son. The finest classic dancing scene is a duet with Sid Charisse, in which they figuratively consummate their relationship. While not much of an actor, Charisse was a brilliant dancer that pushes Astaire to expressive heights in their dancing. Sid was from Texas and started dancing to gain strength after a bout with polio. Like the character in the film, she was a classically trained ballerina, came to Hollywood during the war after the ballet company she was with disbanded. As you can see, she was best known for her exquisite legs, which in a publicity stunt were insured for more than $5 million. The romance in the movie is portrayed as a mature sensual partnership, with Cerisse's character somewhat reserved and remote. The third narrative line in the film is the making of the production, its failure as a misguided, pretentious version of Faust of all things, and its rebirth into the successful reviews of a string of unrelated numbers culminating in the Pulp Fiction Mickey Spillane dance sequence, The Girl Hunt. From high art to pop art, that's entertainment. Quickly, let me run through some of the visual treats of the film. In order to establish the dismal failure of the pretentious Faust version of the Bandwagon, 3 black and white drawings are shown ending with an egg. The high art producer, actor, impresario is introduced coming off the stage production of Oedipus Rex with bright red and green colors. Here is a series of stills showing the dramatic changes in color scheme with several surrealistic images thrown in. The whole film balances the sense of high art versus popular art, which has always been one of the contradictions that underlies so much of cinema. Commerciality against art, especially in Hollywood. This film shows that all of this can be included under the anthem that proclaims, "That's entertainment." Please join us for a discussion of the Bandwagon on January 26th at 7:30 p.m. on the YouTube channel The Bay Theater. And I thank you for your attention.